If there's anyone that would like to sit in the lobby, we're gonna broadcast it on the TV that's out there also. Cushy chairs out there.
Are you ready?
For heaven's sakes.
I just wasn't sure I'm not. Listening.
Well, you're right, though.
I would set it so it kind of shows the board and the podium.
Well, these I'm sorry. It's okay.
Sorry to put it like right in front of you.
Okay, you can't see.
Push it. Like good?
Yep. Okay. And you won't be completely in there. It's just Gerald. I saw him today and I said, "You stand up."
Thank you.
Hey guys. How are you?
I'm gonna sit in today.
Good. He's so bad. So bad. She does. No, not till his term's up. He's done them. He's done them. Oh yes, he's done them. He's done them. Biking, he's done. I don't care. You can call you want to, but I know what's out there. I don't give a damn. I know he does, but he doesn't. You've been patients put under. That's fine. We're gonna be on doing something else. So don't turn around, face the front. He don't care what you say. You just wait till you're asleep. I got a text from her. I didn't text her back. Busy. I don't have time to work all night. You sure?
I'd hope so. I mean, one letter in the mailbox is all it takes. He didn't take much mail.
I didn't buy there with hate themselves. These people are never good.
Town of Newland, throw hands. What? But I know there's some. I'm like,
Good evening, everybody. We get right to welcome to this evening's, public hearing for the county and NDO. Rick, who is our presenter here, has asked that I pass around a list for, people to sign up to speak. Rick doesn't know me, doesn't know that I'm anti that. I'm big on letting folks say what they want, but I will say, because there's so many people here and this is so heated, I had my head snapped off by an old friend of mine this evening and did not expect it.
That would be me, right?
Good job. Yeah, I expected it from big heads, not from Bruce. So this is where it's gonna go. Raise your hand, I'll call on you, tell us your name, tell us what your thoughts are, keep it as tight and short as the same. Once you get into the repetitive, saying the same thing over and over again, I'm gonna cut you down, I'm gonna shut you down. That's the only time I'm gonna say anything. Other than that, I'm more than willing to hear everybody, what everybody's got to say. I've got pizzas ordered at 10 o'clock. We've got food will be here at midnight for those who are still here. So,
or call the distance.
all right, how do we get things started?
I'll be happy to take it from there, Mayor.
Okay, great.
If you'd like. And then we left off the pancake breakfast at 6 a.m. Hello, everybody. Some of you have met me before, most of you have not. My name is Rick Flo, and I work with small towns throughout North Carolina and have for just about 50 years. My task here, when we were hired by the town late last year, was to help the town to overcome some challenges of stagnation. And that is a common problem in some small towns. The opportunities that you have here are largely driven by the infrastructure that you have. In other words, businesses or others that are looking to locate or looking at opportunities or looking for things that you have here. They're looking for water, sewer, tourism, traffic that comes through, people coming through to visit the mountains or to visit the grandfather games or whatever the case might be. And there's a lot of misconceptions about what it takes to do that. The initial reaction by a lot of people is that adding standards is actually contrary to encouraging economic growth. So I'll say it this way. How successful has it been the last 5 years here, your economic growth and reduction of taxes? What's common now, and regardless of your politics, and I am a card-carrying unaffiliated that tends to vote a little right of center. I'm a fiscal conservative. But regardless of your politics, both sides of the arguments typically are correct. We do have to have economic opportunities. We do have to look after natural resources. We have to protect something that we like, and we want to change something that we want to change, whatever that is. And that's what the community is about. It's towns that don't care, that don't need any of this. That became even more paramount in 2010, and that's why I said that about politics a minute ago, because regardless of your politics, it's the law of the land now. It's called the Dodd-Frank Act, which requires underwriters, which is largely lenders and insurance companies, to really dig in when new development is looking at towns. So most development now will not look at a town that doesn't have a clear plan, that doesn't have clear standards and specifications. The second aspect of that is when you're competing for funding at the state level. Let's say we're trying to get money to rehabilitate our sewer. When I was here 2 weeks ago, we listened to a report on how great a condition our 89 or 90-year-old water tank is, how great the condition of some of our water lines are. The state, and I don't know, is anybody in here a taxpayer? Okay. Think of it this way as a taxpayer. If I send my money to Raleigh or to Washington, I don't want them handing it out to somebody because of who they know. I want them handing it out based on something that's a game plan. And so the state of North Carolina, in their wisdom, over the last, I'd say it really kicked in about 5 years ago, this legislature adopted and passed, and the governor signed, standards which require plans for many activities that local governments do. So when you're trying to get $1 million to fix that water tank or to replace some water lines, they're not, they know that you're going in a direction. You've picked a direction. They don't tell you what direction to go in. You do that. You do that. But they want to know that you are working off of a game plan, off of a song sheet, so to speak. And that they're not just saying, well, we'll give NEWLAND $300,000 or $1 million for water lines and then wait and see what happens. Okay? I was in a town hall this morning where 2 town managers ago, the town manager landed in prison. That town manager and the finance officer got a check from the legislature for over $1 million to do some repairs on a small dam that the town owned. Guess where that money went? Anybody guess? Well, they're both in federal prison. The point is responsibility with taxpayer money. So that's the second reason that plans are critical and important. So whether the town's looking for water tank or water system, which right now I think water is probably your biggest priority from the standpoint of public improvements, that's critical. Guess where? In that same town this morning, I was in a meeting on a new development where guess who's extending the water and sewer? That developer is. An out-of-town developer coming in, buying a piece of property, doing some development right in the middle of town, and they are replacing water and sewer lines. Not all of your infrastructure, that's water and sewer, much less your new streets if you've got a little development that comes to the town or something like that. None of that hardly is paid by the local taxpayer or ratepayer. In new development, and that's what the ordinance requires, is that those developers will pay for everything. So that helps the town, pick a town. Pick a town of any size. Charlotte, Asheville, Blowing Rock, Morganton. Half the water lines in Morganton were put in by private money, not taxpayer or ratepayer money. So my job here is to help the town get on that bandwagon and attract some private money investment into this area. Because you can't tax or adjust your rates enough to pay your way out of, what did we hear last, or 2 weeks ago, 20? Was that the number I heard? That's the number I heard. That you had about $20 million worth of deficiencies in your utility system? Where's 20, what would we have to do to a rate increase to retire a 40-year loan to fix $20 million worth of stuff? With, how many people are here in town, Tom? What's the population there? 800?
7.
600?
The report says 715. I think that's the census.
Yeah, 7/15/2020 census.
In the 2020 census, 715 people. Divide that by 2, assuming there's just 2 people on average per house. So you have 355 or 60 resident homes, and then you've got some businesses that are gonna be trying to pay down that debt. That's impossible. That is absolutely impossible. You need to attract some private investment in this area, and you need to attract some state distributed funding in this area. And federal if you can. Anybody know any federal connections? But everything that they're gonna ask, for the most part, is gonna need to be based on some coherent direction that you're going in. Why are you doing it? Where are you headed with it? So this is one of the steps. It sounds like a growing pain, but it's actually not. It tends to affect the existing businesses and existing homeowners little to none. Unless you're doing something major, you know, then you would follow the new standard. If you're doing something major, you want to build a new building, you want to develop something new, you're going to be following the new standards. That's only fair. Everything else is, they call it the grandparent clause. I know that's not what they call it grandfather clause. They give all the dads all, the granddads all the credit, but it's not true. It's the grandparent clause, which means everything that was there that was built to whatever standard applied at the time stays. That's perfectly fine. That's Article 22 of the draft. So the key point that I want to make is the two documents that are the subject of the hearing tonight are basically the plan and the specs for building a tank. Okay, that's essentially what it is. If you don't do anything, that doesn't affect you, okay? So with that said, what we want to hear from you are your comments, and constructive comments help us. Emotionally charged, stuff, I mean, I hear it all. I hear towns that are worried about traffic and they say, how many more, people have to be run over by tractor trailers before we stop getting new industry or something like that. I hear all kinds of comments. But what we really need is, what is it that concerns you the most in your area, so that we can take that comment and we can address that in a follow-up work session with this board. If I try to just have a discussion back and forth with each individual, we will be having pancake breakfast, and I will pay at 6 a.m. Okay?
Big Macs will be open, so.
With that said, what I'd like to do is Mayor, if you want to start recognizing people, and we're gonna be taking everything down and go from there.
I'd like to start with Bruce Lacy, by golly.
Dennis has to leave.
Where you gotta be, Dennis?
Put in
I got another meeting at 6:30.
Anything important in this meeting?
I yield.
I wouldn't be here.
Go ahead.
And first of all, my comments are directed to the board because they're the elected officials that that's accountable to me and not Mr. Flo. There are several things within the document itself that I find troublesome. I think we all have specifics, but I'm more concerned with the overall mandate and scope of this, and just how it came about. Was this item in a budget line this past year? Was there a budget for this? Was it ever mentioned in budget? If not, when was the budget amendment made to move money from something to pay for this? Because, as you know, we have to have a balanced budget. So if the budget amendment was never made, then how did that money get expended? Balanced budget is the sort of the watchword of everything that the town should be doing, and does not cover deficit spending. So this mandate, was this a mandate from the board to produce this as it was presented here? What was the scope of the task given to the planning board by the elected officials to bring this about? Was this a general do something, or was there some specifics that was presented by the elected board to the planning board to have a guideline to go by? And the implementation of this, regardless of what's been said, would require a lot of money to be spent. Who's going to be doing the administration, the inspection, the enforcement? Who's going to determine this? Are we going to come to the point where neighbors will be calling and saying, my neighbor's doing this, like an HOA or something like that? Who's going to be doing the enforcement, the inspection, and the administration of this? And it has also been said that this is a starting point. That's not how ordinances work. They are a document. They're not a starting point. They are the ending point. That's what becomes the standard. And if you're continually in a process of saying we need to amend or do something with it, then it's obvious it wasn't very good to start with. And I think the overall tone is that, yes, we can see that there may be some things that needed to be done, but the scope of this is far beyond what's required right now, especially considering the financial situation of the town. And, we are using a sledgehammer to kill a gnat, I think, in a lot of ways. And the intent, I think, comes a lot from specific situations, specific developments, specific sites that folks who are making some decisions did not want And they are trying to use this as a giant screen to take care of everything whenever, rather than dealing with the specific issue that came about. So that's about, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, how it works and what's this and who does what and all the particulars, all the 470 pages of that. But I think the greater, where we have to start is, where did it come from?
I can't answer that, I wasn't on the board. Anybody?
I think Gil, Jamie, Warren, Kim, and the way it was presented, this was not how it was presented to us. And at the time, we did approve the money. Did we have the money? I don't know. We were never, now we don't have the money, we're gonna deficit, so obviously, yeah. But we did approve it. Approved on board, but as far as amendments were made, I don't remember that. Have to be a quick report finance officer or Mr. Bailey.
And Dennis, I don't know if this really addresses, but when it was first talked about, maybe Mr. Flo, because we asked Bill and we didn't get an answer. I don't know if Mr. Flo or someone else from the business was gonna go out and talk to business owners, talk to citizens and find out what they perceived was best for Newland. And we don't know if that happened. We asked who we talked to and we got question marks back from Mr. Bailey. So that was never brought to fruition, did they go out and find out? Because we were led to believe that was gonna happen.
And Dennis, just to follow up with what Ms. Holly said there, Alderman Holly. We were told that this would be coming kind of towards October or something. December, yeah. And I know that some of you, and I'm not gonna pinpoint you down, have told us that y'all talked to these guys on the planning board, and they said to you, well, we really never said that, it was just given to us. So I don't know if that was true or not, that could be hearsay, but I know that I've had citizens tell me that planning board members told them that. So, to be honest, I'm just as shocked as you are with it.
I'm not gonna be able to keep my mouth
So-
shut. Jamie, can you talk to which planning board committees specifically you're referring to? Because there's no men on that board, first of all.
I said someone, I didn't,
No, you did. You can watch the tape later, though. It's cool.
but I didn't quite say
But,
a man.
I mean,
said
many
a-
of the folks that are on that planning committee are here, so you can just speak directly to us about that.
Okay, I said a citizen told me that someone told them they had never seen it. I'm not gonna pinpoint citizens.
But what I'm saying is that if you have questions for the planning committee of who might have said what, there are many of us sitting here right now that you can address directly to give you a direct answer to your question.
Okay, well, we're talking about what was.
I don't do hearsay, he said, she said, they
Okay.
said, I'm not
All
they.
right, Ms. Owen, thank you.
I am part of the planning committee.
Okay, and how many of you are here on the planning committee? Raise your hand. All right, the one that told the citizen that is here, she's sitting right there. This is what I was told, it was Miss Rash, but anyway. You told a citizen in the last meeting that y'all had never seen this.
That's why we're not they.
I've never seen that. Well, what was I
That
looking
y'all
at?
were presented this in your meeting and said, here's your Bible.
What do you mean I've never seen it? I had it with me every meeting. I don't know what that means.
I mean, Keenan can speak for it. He's been at every meeting there as a representative of the aldermen.
Well, his mother's
And
the chair, or the vice chair.
so what does that have to do with anything? He's also an alderman and he's there
We're
attending.
not gonna get in here. Yeah.
To answer your question, as far as, to the best of my knowledge, how to prove it, from a checks and balances perspective, throughout the course of the year, there wasn't any. In other words, what money did we have, what money did we know what was going on? Did we stop and look at our checkbook to see how much we had in it? And we made several adjustments during that time. And I do say we, I wasn't one, but we did do several adjustments that did not get amended. So with that said, here we are.
That, That's like last meeting, whenever we were told that we don't have to worry about what happened before, here we are, is not an answer.
You know, I entirely agree. I have no problem whatsoever in raising the tax rate. And the reason is that it came up as a suggestion, it wasn't a suggestion. We had to do something because we could not turn that budget into state without at least equalizing the money that we had versus the money that we were going to.
Okay, I'm gonna remind everybody, this is a planning board business, this is not to get bloated about our.
Okay, that answers that question.
I just can't take it.
Next question, Bruce. Feel free.
I will say, it's true, I did walk in, and I've known Derek a long time, and he sort of joked with me and said something, I did sort of bite his head off. I apologize. I'll give her a public apology. My wife would think I could do worse, I guess. Okay, I don't know, I got a feeling there's gonna be a lot of comments tonight, and it's probably going most of the day. But could I borrow someone's book just for a second? Okay. 600 and some pages. I counted 615. Now, about 100 of that's just like NEWLAND stuff, survey, but I counted over 500 that's actual ordinances or charts or that kind of stuff. So I'm saying out of 600 and some pages, the very first sentence has the fifth word that's the most unreasonable statement. It's the most falsehood in the whole book. It starts statement of consistency and reasonableness for the adoption of the town board. Reasonableness.
Right.
I challenge you, I've read it. My brother's read it. I don't know how many of you have. It's painful reading. It takes a long time. I spent the better part of 6 days reading this. And I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I've got some background and work experience in this stuff. I went through 3 years of law school, which I hated. I practiced law in NEWLAND for 26 years. I've been a magistrate for 29 years, so I have dealt my entire adult life dealing with legal stuff, reading legal documents. And I'm gonna tell you, there is far more, and I'm sorry, there's far more unreasonable in this book than there is reasonable. Read it, and if you don't have time to read it, and most of you won't, this is drudgery. Read 4 articles. Read Article 2, 7, 11, and 12. If you read those 4, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about.
There you go.
So, that's the book. So I want to, that's what I'm not saying this is not an easy job for anybody, I know that, but this could have long-term, if it passes as it's written, we're gonna cause pain and suffering for our children, our grandchildren, our businesses. I don't see it being good at all. It is too restrictive. You know, we're not Hamptons, New York. We're not Aspen, Colorado. We're not even some old town in California. We are NEWLAND, North Carolina. We're a quaint little mountain community. And this is overkill. This is overreach. In my 47 years, and I'm honest when I say in my 47 years, the effect it will have on the people is it's the worst thing I've ever read.
Oh.
It's unfair, it's unreasonable, it's complex, it's burdensome, it's unnecessary, it's gonna cost people a lot of money.
Can you
lot of money.
can you give us
Don't think it won't.
specifics?
And I'm gonna address one other thing right quick. Don't talk about, you're gonna hear this, oh, your grandfathered in, don't worry about it. Your grandfathered in, but let me tell you something. Just as soon as you have a partial fire, or a partial flood, and the flood might come from a water main busted and flooding your business. You wanna expand your business or home or add an addition, maybe they find out you're doing some rehab work and they find out asbestos in your thing. As soon as you do something to improve it or change it, bingo, you're in. You gotta apply by it. If you go up in your zoning, it's not a single commercial thing. If you're joined 194 or 181, it's commercial property. I don't care what's on it. It's commercial property. If you go up from whatever they've got it as residential to commercial because someone's gonna buy and put a business on it, bingo, they got you. If it goes up in intensity, then you're part of this easement. So it's not as plain and easy as being represented. So I'm gonna give you just one example. There could be 100 of them, okay? I don't wanna take up your time. I know a lot of people wanna speak, but this is close to my heart. I don't live in the town of NEWLAND now, but I grew up. My brother and I grew up in the town of NEWLAND. My parents lived their entire lives in the town of NEWLAND. My grandparents lived their entire lives in the town of NEWLAND. So I've been here and I'm vested. We've had business in here for decades. We've paid tens of thousands of dollars for the town in taxes. So we're vested. We love NEWLAND, okay? So this is an example of what can happen in my opinion. I didn't know NEWLAND was going to be like the U.S. Forest Service, but we love trees so much. We love trees so much, and they're great things, but you don't want them in the middle of where a building needs to be, or a road needs to be, or a parking lot. But there's even language in this document, this 600-page treatise, that says urban forestry practices. City forest practices. Now, what city you know has a forest in it? You might get New York with a big central park, but it's not a forest. So it goes from that, and this is my example. Let's say I live in the town of NEWLAND. My wife and I, we have a lot and a house, and we got 3 wonderful grandbabies, which is true, by the way. Or will be soon, we got an adoption. So, and they come up and visit every month, maybe twice a month, and they're bored to death. They can't do so much on their phones and computers, so they're bored. So we come up with the idea, I know, let's put a little playground. Let's put a swing set, one of those little forts with a slide, and dig a little sandbox. Let's do that. Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? So give them something to look forward to. And then maybe we put a little fire pit and a grill there where we can grill hot dogs and hamburgers and have family time, which people don't have family time anymore. So we thought it was a great idea, and so we go out and I look at it and I said, right here's the best place. It's convenient to the kitchen and restrooms, and I might have to cut 2 trees though, not big trees, maybe they're like this big, but to make it work, I may have to cut a couple trees, and bingo, trees. So, okay, we got to deal with anything with a tree, anything you do on your land, I don't care what it is. If you disturb the soil, if you touch a tree, if you build a fence, you got to get a permit, period. So I got to cut trees to make this work. So what have I got to do? I look at the ordinance and I see that in this ordinance, in this 600-page ordinance, if on your land you have a tree that is 4 inches in diameter, bingo, tree conservation area. You can't mess with it. It's a tree conservation area. But wait, like the commercials, it gets worse. There's more. There's also something here called critical root zone. Critical root zone. What that means, for every inch of your diameter of your tree, you got to protect a foot around it. So if it's a 4-inch tree, that's 4 foot around it. It's in the critical root zone. If it's a 10-inch tree, that's 10 feet around it. Critical root zone. Okay, so I can't cut this tree. What have I got to do? I got to march down here to NEWLAND Town Hall, and I got to see the planning, zoning, and subdivision administrator. I don't know if he's here tonight. I understand it's going to be the town manager. I don't know, but the bottom line is the king. Because when you talk about this ordinance, that administrator is a king. He is powerful, powerful. He can make your life great, or he can turn it down. And he can even add things to this thing to make your project work, whatever you want to do. So I go see the king, and I said, look, I want to build this little playground, and I want to cut a couple trees. And it's, no, you need a tree disturbance permit. Tree disturbance permits. I love these names, by the way. So I said, well, okay, well, what have I got to do? What's it cost me? I'll do it. No, it's not that easy, the king says. The king says, you've got to prepare a tree protection plan. A tree protection plan. I go, what's the tree protection plan? And here's where the money comes in. To get a tree protection plan, you've got to draft and have done a very extensive survey. I'm not talking just a boundary line survey. I'm talking about locating structures, ditches, utility easements, setbacks, trees. Any tree 18 inches or greater on your entire land has to be shot in by a surveyor and identified by name on this plan. It's going to take. How busy are contractors today? How busy are surveyors? I know they're a year behind. I've got one in my family. It's not going to be something you're going to go in a month and get there. And you can't get people there. So several months later, I got to decide, okay, how much is this going to cost? And it's going to be $5,000 to $7,000 to get everything on this map and do that I need done. So, okay, are my grandbabies worth it? Yeah, but that's a lot of money. I could have built the whole thing for $5,000 to $7,000. So I decided to go ahead, have the extensive survey done. That delayed it several months, and I've got my plan, and I'm happy, and I'm marching back down to town hall to talk to the king. And the king goes, well, we still got to review some things and see, and I sort of understand that, and so I leave. And in 2 or 3 weeks, he gave me the message, he didn't like maybe the location of it, he thought this should have been done maybe, if I wanted to really change a lot of stuff, I might could get approved, but the bottom line, he turns me down. So all right, so now I'm turned down. Well, what do I do? Well, there's an option you can do. I can appeal it to the Board of Adjustment, okay? Good deal. The Board of Adjustment can overrule the king or modify or whatever. But in this 600-page document, mandatory, guess what? The king is staff. He's part of the staff of the Board of Adjustment. He's also part of the staff of the Planning Board. So the king is working hand in hand with these people all along. Do you think the king, do you think the workers of them aren't gonna be influenced somewhere? Do they wanna go against the king who they've worked with all these years? No, it's gonna influence their decision possibly. So that's not good. So let's just say they agree, I can't do it, it's not the right place. So now I've spent all this money, I still don't have a park for my little grandbabies, and what am I gonna do? The only choice then is to sue the town of Newland, and you have to do it in the Superior Court. Superior Court, the old timers used to be on, they called it big court. District Court was small court, but Superior Court, that's big court. You go into Superior Court, you're gonna spend a lot of money with attorneys. A lot of money. So I'm just saying, well, I'm up to 5 to 7, now I'm gonna read 10,000 if I do it, and you'd have no guarantee that you're gonna get to do this. And I'm talking about putting a swing set, a sandbox, and a thing, I mean, very little work on property that we bought, we pay taxes on, we've maintained all these years. I just don't think that's reasonable. I really don't. So that's sort of, that's, you know, I know you guys, I don't want to end this, but I want one statement to the board, to the
Yeah,
planning
I'm
board.
like,
I mean, I appreciate people coming. I know this isn't fun or friendly for anybody, and I'm sorry, Derek.
I love your voice, you put me to sleep.
So, I'm glad to say I'm going into magistrate mode, what you'd say, but, this is what I've got to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. When you do something, or create something, that is so intrusive in people's lives, in people's livelihoods, it is not business anymore. It's personal. It's very personal. The way this is drawn, all the things, all the complications, this is not it. This is going to get personal with all kinds of people. I mean, I'm not saying that things that don't need to be done, but it should be baby steps or something. It shouldn't be this monstrosity. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to necessarily offend anybody, but if the town manager, the king, if I offend you, I'm sorry. But I meant it. I mean
Next, it's like Paul and Dean Smith after he retired. You really want to go after your brother? Sure. I'll do right on.
Are you gonna address
I'll be
that
sure.
first? Are you gonna let him address this first?
One of the things that's been said is that this doesn't impact you if you're already existing, but it does. You have a house.
I'm sorry, could you come up here?
Yep.
Start here. Sorry.
One of the things they have is single-family residential one. Your single-family residential one place in the ordinance says, proposed ordinance, says that you will have 8/10 of an acre. Another place it says 1 acre. So there's a discrepancy there. Either one is more than the county requires for well and septic. County well and septic is 3/4 of an acre. So now we've got town water and sewer, but we are bigger than the county requires for septic and well. Makes no sense. Now, pretend you've got 6/10 of an acre. So you're not as big as what the town now requires, but you're zoned single-family residential 1. Can you use your current house? Sure. Until you have a fire that destroys 50% of it. Now, you're out of luck. You are a non-conforming use. So you can't rebuild that house because you don't have enough land to conform to single-family residential 1. And you say, oh, what's the odds that my house is going to burn? That's not what happened.
Sure
But
does. That
what
happens every day.
what if you need to borrow some money on your house? The appraiser comes and you're a non-conforming use. You don't meet the requirements for your area. So now the appraiser has to report to the bank. This is a non-conforming use. Will the bank loan you anything? I don't know, but I'm gonna bet that they will either loan you no money or they won't loan you as much money. So you got a problem if you're non-conforming. There's a lot of property in this town that I would consider zoned at the moment, proposed zone, incorrect. I see property that I would consider commercial, zone single-family residential 1. I look down Highway 181 and there's not a single bit of commercial property. O'Reilly's is not commercial, Avery Tire's not commercial, Packrat's is not commercial, United Community Bank's not commercial. State Employees Credit Union's commercial, but get down in community bank is not. I can't explain that. Triple H is not commercial, it's mixed use too, as I recall. So no commercial on 181. There's a huge cost in complying with some of this stuff. So one of the things, and I'll use, say you wanted to build a bathroom, but before you can build a bathroom, you've got to come down and have a pre-construction conference with the town administrator. Then he's going to tell you that you need to comply with this proposed site plan. That comprises about 20 items, and they're not all simple. This is supposed to be prepared by a surveyor, engineer, landscape architect. I don't have time right now. If I wanted to do it, I'm so far behind, I don't have time. I don't think Ralph Daughtry's got time. So who's going to do this? Maybe you can find somebody out of Boone or Asheville or Charlotte to come up and do it, but that's going to be expensive. And even if I were doing it, I can easily see you spending $5,000 on your proposed site plan. I mean, it's involved, there's a lot of stuff. I have no problem charging you for my services, but I really would like for you to get some benefit out of those services. And I don't see where you're getting any benefit out of this, even if I were doing it. I don't want to do it. I want you to spend that $5,000 to build your bathroom. Use it to build your bathroom. Don't be giving it to me to satisfy a bureaucratic, obligation. And then, even after you get that, there's a follow-up site plan, and maybe that's another $2,000 or so. Use that money to build your bathroom. Don't be giving it to me. I don't want that. That's not what I want to be doing. If this had been in effect, I really don't think, I was the broker on both O'Reilly's and Bojangles. I really don't think either one of those parties would have come to NEWLAND if this had been in effect. There's tremendous requirements on landscaping. There's tremendous requirements on bicycle parking. 5% of your parking is bicycles. Your parking has to be paved, no more gravel parking lots. If you have a drive-through window, you have to have 4 electric vehicle charging stations per drive-through window. I counted it up, and right at the moment, we've got, I think it was 10 or 11 drive-through windows in NEWLAND, so I guess we'll have 44 drive-through, electric vehicle charging stations. Maybe they can come from I-81 over here and charge their vehicle. So, okay, that's enough. Someone else talk. Thank you.
I just got a new electric vehicle, and I don't even know where to charge my car around here when I'm going in or out.
Yeah, I can address some of these comments. It's, first of all, let me put things the simplest way. As you will recall, and I'm gonna look at the planning board for a minute, I said, I called it the ragu. Remember that? Anybody remember ragu spaghetti sauce? I said, the best place to begin is so you can see what everything looks like, and we can take things out if you want to. So for example, the comments about conservation areas, which are only a 5% or a smaller part of the project, it's not the whole project. Those things, we've had towns before strip that out. And so the way the ordinance is written, I'm not smart enough to do it the hard way, so I do it in an easy way, where we basically pick up Article 11, Section 8, and pull it out from there on to the end of Article 11, and that stuff goes, tree protection, all tree protection goes away. The only thing that would stay in the front would be landscaping and new developments, like if you did have a new subdivision or something, they had landscaping around their sign or their entrance or whatever else. So that's just a general statement about how easy it is to actually pare this back. And as I've said to the planning board, and I've said to you, that I think that once you've got your public comments, then we sit down in a work session environment, go through and see what we don't like or want to call out. There is no retrofitting requirement. There's no going back to the drawing board on those drive-throughs that are there. The reason that's actually in there is communities actually get a lot of bonus points on transportation highway projects when that's in there, and those charging stations actually don't cost the restaurants anything. There are companies out there that say, if you've got conduit, we will in at no cost, because they're looking for places to set up charging stations, because if you're charging,
Take
you
away
pay.
their parking spots.
the bicycle parking is a option. If somebody, like, let's say you had a plant down here that was gonna employ 100 people or something like that, and they wanted to, because the town's so small.
Neighbor county?
Okay,
We don't have
and they wanted to cut back on their parking, and because it's such a compact area, they have the option of reducing their parking if they replace, by 5%, if they replace it with like, of bike lockers and things of that nature. That's something that I'm dealing with a business park right now that loves that type of feature, because they're looking at large amounts of paving and things of that nature, and they want to be close to town, and that's what you have to sell. Couple of other things that, just want to speak to there's not actually a discrepancy in the SFR1 acreage. It's minimum lot size, if you're creating a new lot, is not an acre. It's, much smaller than that, and I don't want to quote without looking up, but it's about 37,000 square feet. But if you were taking a 10-acre site and cutting it up into new lots, then that 37,000 square feet would be the size of the new lot, because part of that acreage goes into the street right away or whatever. Another aspect is that if you've got an existing lot, let's say you're in an SFR1, and your lot's 35,000 square feet, not 37,000 square feet, can you, and your house is taken away for whatever reason, tornado grabs it, aliens, fire, whatever. Let's suppose you've got a house, or you've got a lot that's in that area now that's vacant. Guess what? You can build on it. You just meet the other standards, like a setback or whatever, but you can build on it. It is an existing lot of record, and you have every right to use that lot. So, contrary to some of the things that have been said, it's not brutal on existing residents. So, I'm not trying to sell it to you, I'm just letting you know that some of what's being said is misunderstood.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Just in reference, I guess if you have cancer and you need brain surgery to remove that cancer, you want to go to the best person for that job, right? The best surgeon that you can possibly afford?
That's what I'm going.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I mean, if I had to, that's what I'm.
Oh, that's where you're going. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
That's all.
So this is kind of just addressing the town in general, saying, well, when did we decide to do this, or why are we doing this, or how are we doing this? Rick was chosen because of experience and because of success. He was hired because of his, success and history. And if you go back into towns, I'm sure you can see where his recommendations from their organization have helped towns grow and flourish. And I just look at it as there may be things that don't fit each individual here, and I completely understand that. But we've been sitting through these meetings, reading those grueling 600 and some pages and going through them bit by bit to make sure that we could understand and go through this process. We want to go to the best and get that, so it helps our town grow and flourish. I don't want to go to someone who doesn't.
Is that correct, or is it also, is it correct that town administrator Bill was also an investor in this company? Is that, or at least was?
He was an employee in our company.
Okay, so maybe that might have had something to do with it, maybe not necessarily, but an affiliation. Just thought I'd put that out there in case that wasn't.
We do that for a lot of our employees, is we give them it's a profit sharing program.
I'm just contradicting.
I've got a question.
Well, no, I
What
just
towns
think,
have you
wait, I
done?
wasn't done. I'm just curious as to, we can go and we can argue all these semantics, or Bill was part of this, or whoever was part of this. Let's just let Rick's track record speak for Rick and their firm.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That thing, I'd like to see the track record. I don't know that we were ever.
I
My mind then, I want to say something. I want to go ahead and cut this out. I know that the planning board put a lot of time and effort in there. I do not want to disrespect it. The meeting, I only went to one meeting, the meeting that I saw, I was very impressed with what you all are doing.
And they were open, and anyone could have come to them at any given time.
With that said, I'm gonna understand, at least I think how the town got this, and how I got this, was that this was presented and going to be passed at the June 2nd meeting. That's,
Nobody
the
said it.
document said it.
The document said it on the front page.
Advertised that way. And suddenly, first time I had a chance to go ahead and look at it was this. My take has been, we need to stop this right now. At the very least, we need to go through it by line item. Regu is what he called it. But at the end of the day, what we have here is, obviously, is a trust issue. Because the Regu, basically, it feels like we're being handed this, crammed down our throats, and said, you gotta do something about it now. And I think that's why a lot of people are mad about this whole thing, because there are things that need to be gone through. And to be honest with you, when somebody does that to me, I get a little, matter of fact, I get really hesitant. I put everything back against the wall. That's where we're currently at.
Alderman
I'm sorry.
Calvert, may I make a comment on that?
Please do.
Our original schedule was to, and this was the schedule that we put on the table, was that these normally take about a year or so. And we were anticipating, having this hearing around the first of, somewhere between October and December. A few months ago, there was a lot of concern in town about projects getting ahead, and I told them, and so I'm gonna ask the planning board and those members of the Board of Aldermen that attended planning board meetings, or those that may have watched it, if you've ever heard me say this, I never want to drown the planning board. We never wanna move so fast that it does that. Did I ever say that in those meetings? A lot of times. And, but what we ran into there was a lot of concern at the community level about things that people wanted the town to be able to manage, to stop, to control, whatever the case might be. And I said, well, that puts us in a pickle. We either A, stay the course and wait till we get everything perfect, and whatever happens between now and then just happens, whether people like it or not. Or if you wanna step up the pace, if you're telling us to step up the pace, we will do that. And then you can circle back and peel that onion back out, but at least you've got your safety net under you. So I didn't advocate going this fast. This is something that I think that there was a lot of fear in this community that there was a need to do that.
Yeah, can you tell us who,
Pardon me?
can you tell us where that fear came from
I was
besides
hearing
the
it from-
planning
I was hearing
board?
it in this room. right
Did
here.
you speak with any of the business owners or
About
taxpayers
that
in
fear?
town?
Yeah.
I think the fear was the HUD housing going in overflows. They were trying to do their best to come up with a way to stop that. That's where.
And this is it?
Just
asking.
May I say something? The town of Newland has 3 buildings, 3 properties that have low-income housing on it. And I can tell you right now that all 3 of those have better-looking properties than a lot of you all do. It's kept clean, it's kept mowed, the inside of those apartments are kept clean. To my knowledge, I don't know if the law's ever been called over there. I don't understand why people are so negative about HUD housing. I mean, this is ridiculous. Oh, I'm so much better than everybody else. I don't want HUD people living next to me.
It wasn't about HUD, for us, at least on the
Well,
committee.
That's what I've been hearing, and as you just said, to keep, Lowe's from becoming HUD. Pine Ridge Apartments, the grounds are kept beautiful. Over
Oh,
there,
let me make it very clear, I support,
I mean,
Phillips and Toes and
I don't understand why,
It's-
I mean,
they're,
if
yeah,
that's
Rockmore and Knox Point, they're all, and it's usually elderly folks. that
very
pay
nice
bills.
people that are just,
They don't allow felons, I mean,
work their
one of
whole
my
life.
boys got arrested for visiting his dad at one of the places, cause he's a convicted felon.
they worked their
I don't-
whole
yeah, I
life,
don't
but
know this,
unfortunately didn't
yeah.
have a retirement account.
No, I was just telling you, trying, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's been, I've heard that from day one, that this started because of trying to get rid of what was gonna be done at Lowe's.
Sam, you're one of the ones that really don't want the Lowe's project. Can you explain to her what was behind that?
I'm one of the ones, I thought we were in the process, because first we were gonna bring in shopping malls, and then wasn't gonna close down Family Dollar.
No, stay focused on,
I'm
you're one of the ones that
focused.
didn't want the HUD.
I'm focused. We need tax base in Newland,
Yes, we do.
and that's no tax base. But then you think about it, you're gonna get the water bills off of it and all that, but I have nothing against HUD housing, I have nothing against anything.
I mean, I do not like I have never liked the better than you attitude my whole life.
No
And,
one's, I don't think that that's the
But
intent behind
that's the
that.
It was
perception.
visited over at the sewer plant.
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
But it was said by whom?
At a, I'll
I'll
tell
take
you,
a transcript.
at a plan, at a,
From a meeting.
town hall
Yeah.
meeting, the HUD housing came up that night. Nancy Davis sat in this room and said, we've gotta speed this up. Can't they put them out on cow camp?
Yes.
Those were her exact words.
Well, you know, this is ridiculous. That's people you don't need to listen to. Yeah, that's people you don't need to listen to. When people are so blindsided to the needs of human beings.
Amen.
Did the board make appointments for all of these planning committee members?
They were volunteers.
They volunteered in a meeting.
They were
Like, I'll do it.
No businesses.
We tried to appoint people, but that didn't go over too good.
I think
People
Susan-
that
I think you guys are the board though, right? Who didn't it go over well with?
I'll just invite you to go back and look at those meetings.
You want to go.
Maybe, I don't know.
Go ahead,
I
ma'am.
couldn't wait. My name is Susan Johnson, and I'm here tonight with my husband, who's standing out in the hall over there, and we represent my mother-in-law, Sue Johnson, who couldn't be here. She has always seen our business as a way to minister to other people, okay? Over the years, she and my father-in-law, Kelly, have helped a ton of families. We currently own 7 units in the town of NEWLAND, which house 15 families and 2 businesses. Over the last few years, we have heard over and over again the need for affordable housing. There have been days over this past year that I have answered on average 5 calls a day about a rental unit. We strive to offer a safe and affordable housing for those families that live in our units. Some of them are Hispanics, some are single moms, some are disabled, some are elderly, and some of them even receive HUD housing. On the current zoning map, our 3 buildings on Hubert Street and Kelly Street, which house 12 families, is zoned single-family residential. Single-family residential is defined as a freestanding residential structure intended for use by one owner as a single dwelling unit. With rare exception, it has no shared walls and it stands on its own land. With this zoning in place, if one of our buildings were destroyed, we could not rebuild it, putting 4 families out of their homes. Who does that help? Really?
No one.
Who does it help? Okay, certainly not the families that live there. Even if we were allowed to build back, you talked about setbacks, Mr. Flo. It wouldn't work. I'm gonna
I was
finish.
just gonna let you know that.
Let her
all we have to do is-
finish. Let her finish.
It wouldn't work.
Change the map.
Article 9.3-2, there shall be at least 12 feet of separation between buildings that are not attached. That would not be feasible on that lot. Also, in that same section, all buildings shall front onto a public street. Kelly Street is owned by our family and is not a town street, and 2 of those buildings face that private street. What would happen if we needed to borrow money? And we wanted to use those apartments? The bank probably, like Mike said, would not loan us the money because we would be non-conforming. Article 7, page 6, 7.7-1-A-3. Properties located within 1,500 feet of each other and under the same ownership shall be considered one development. All of our property within the town limits is pretty much, it'd be close, within 1,500 feet of each other. We do a lot of remodeling and updating. Did you know that when you install a new hot water heater or a stove or a fridge, all of those things are considered updating by the IRS? According to these new rules, if we remodeled more than 49% of our tax value, then we come under the NEWLAND Development Ordinance. We replace a lot of hot water heaters, we replace a lot of stoves and fridges on top of the improvements that we are continually working on. Our lot near the courthouse has 3 structures on it. my father-in-law's old law office, which was the original Avery County Bank, and now houses Carver Technologies and attorney C.L. Hughes, a house right beside it that's rented to a single mom, and another home just behind that was rented to a single lady and her veteran husband. That is zone mixed use. According to Article 2.3, if we lost one of those buildings in a fire or a tornado, or God forbid somebody hits the building, because they have hit the little thing in the middle there, we couldn't rebuild it, because the article states that only one building per lot may be erected, unless all three go together, and they don't, obviously, because two are houses and one's a commercial building. Our townhouse on Hardy's Alley, one townhouse, zone commercial, that's rented to a teacher in our school system. There is very little land, pretty much just what's beneath it. So if something happens to that, we are out of unit. And we can't rebuild that unit. And I'd also like to ask why the planning board and the board of adjustment can't include property owners within the town of NEWLAND, or business owners even. We pay a substantial amount of property tax to the town. Why shouldn't we be allowed a seat at the table, considering the things that are being put forth substantially affect our family and the families that we serve? I grew up off this mountain, but I have called this place home for 29 years. My husband grew up here. We lived in NEWLAND for 4 years before we bought our home in Montezuma. And that now houses Dr. Williams' eye office. We've worked here, we've gone to church here, we do as much business in this town and county as we can. We have raised our children here, they attended Avery County schools. To think that we have invested so much, and to know in the click of a pen, it could all be gone. That's sad to me. I never thought that's what Avery County would be. Our family asks that you vote no to the NEWLAND development ordinance.
I still like to have my question answered. What towns did you do?
We served about 220 of the 550 in North Carolina.
Can you name off any that's in a 100-mile radius of here?
100-mile radius. Let me just get my map in my head and start working in that direction.
Charlotte, North Carolina is 100 miles from here.
We work predominantly for small towns. I sold farm, we did work for the big cities.
Yeah, but between here and Charlotte, there'll be a lot of small cities. I'm
Right.
just helping you get your bearings.
I really need to look at my client list. I'm trying to place geography. You painted a picture of 100 miles. Most of our clients are from about here east all the way to the coast.
Can you give us one?
In 100 miles.
Just one.
Yeah, Statesville, I mean, let's see, North Wilkesboro and Wilkesboro,
All them had major big highways going straight through them.
Yeah.
Major big highways.
well, probably one of the
Big
smallest
roads.
I've ever done work for was Morgan, that actually adopted and everything else. Morgan is about 300 or 400 people, I think, something like that. That's the smallest. That's probably a little more than 100 miles, maybe 120 or so miles from here. Let me make a recommendation to this board, because a lot of the comments that I'm hearing are misinterpreting the ordinance. It's not at all what that ordinance requires. And some of the different districts are being run together on these things. I'm hearing a lot of comments, and so my suggestion would be that we go through the rest of the room and get all these comments, and then we structure a time when we can come back and show you basically what it takes to address that comment that they made. Some of them are quite simple, like when we hear a comment about commercial, because mixed use too is a very heavy commercial, and it's actually the most lenient in terms of standards and specifications. and the most mixtures of things. So when people say there's no commercial in that area, that's what the mixed use two really is. It's a long list of all kinds of stuff. So we I think we can answer these questions, but let us finish getting that information from everyone. So if we can just continue down, I'm writing down your comments, I'm writing down the parts that I can do something about, okay?
But I would say that, you know, that's the challenge, because again, the way this has been presented the whole time, like people showed up here tonight in a panic, thinking, you're just gonna pass this thing.
That's how it was presented.
You know, exactly, with the dates from the beginning and everything. I mean, we've all been like, I had Mike split my property already, so that I wouldn't have to worry about it. So you know, for me, one of the things would be, it sure seems really cookie cutter in the way that it was assembled. I'm not sure why we would need, for instance, SFR 1, 2, and 3. But the values that were chosen with those are troublesome to me and need to be revisited. I mean, you're coming from a town ordinance where a residential lot could be split down to 5,000 square feet. And where you've rezoned my property on Park Street would be 17,500 at minimum. So, like, I could split that thing, you know, 5 more times. Where'd that number come from? Why that number? And it's consistent with what has already been brought up here, that when you look at those, like, one of my big concerns, despite all the other things, you go, oh, we can pull that out, we can pull that out, and I feel for Mike, because, man, I read that RV section, that's horrible. But when we talk about the residential stuff, it's like, even the one you want to say is SF1, that's 1 acre, they could have been 500 square feet. There's no reason to choose those numbers. They're so arbitrary, and they have big negative impacts, because I came in this room and listened to other people who are talking about the same thing I am. They have projects planned. But like, you know, many of us, we don't have the money yet. So, you know, something like this passes before I have the money to do it, I can't do it. And I do disagree with your non-conforming use interpretation here, because from a legal side, anytime you go up against it, somebody else is going to be reading that document and interpreting it at some point. And they can interpret it the same way the residents have interpreted it. If you throw out the whole non-conforming use problem that's in there, by not even defining non-conforming uses and what happened, maybe you would get there. But right now, with the way you have it, honestly, I think you're wrong. I'm like, you don't even understand your own document at this point, if we are all getting it that wrong.
I have approximately 120 court cases and 3 Supreme Court cases as an expert witness under my belt.
Do you have those citations? Can you give them to me? I'd love to read those cases.
But again, I would just say, right, like, you've put something together that many of us have already noticed. Wasn't even proofwritten for the other communities that it was put together for. And we're reading it one way and having a hard time because it's not in language that helps us understand that that might be acceptable. And I'll let Dave jump in.
I have an upper GI in the morning on 2 hours past my prep time. That's it. So, that's all I can do.
Hold it. Before you leave, we'd like to know where you stand on this before you walk out and then it goes to somebody else.
Put down the road, certainly no decision can be made on this whatsoever as far as on this tonight. If anything, my only suggestion, if this is to be continued, is if this needs to be put into some type of sessions like we did during the budget. So we would actually have to sit down and go line item by line item, because there's too many things in there we can't make.
You're gonna miss the people's voice. We have to work.
If I had to make a decision tonight, it would be, I would just say,
Amen.
That said, I'm gonna go do my prep. I live about 3 minutes from here, so if I need to come back for a vote, you got my phone.
Ma'am, go get your prep. Most everyone was here 2 weeks ago at the budget meeting. We're being very honest that Newland has a deficit. As this plan is at present, it is massive. There are 4 employees in the town hall. It is not implementable, it is not financially sustainable, it is not enforceable.
Amen.
Mayor.
Planning board, thank you for doing what you did, Rick, I appreciate your time, thank you.
Good luck.
First of all, I agree with what Vicki just said. This is not enforceable from a financial standpoint, if nothing else. And we have to look at that based on the condition of our town finances. But I want to talk about fences, because a lot of times people want to build fences on their property. They want to fence in a dog, they want to fence out a dog, they want to fence their garden, keep the critters out of it. You know, all kinds of reasons you might want to fence. Well, first, the way this is written, you gotta have a permit. Well, the permit, the fees for that are gonna be set by the Board of Aldermen. We have no idea what they might be. They don't know yet. So that's the first thing. Depending on where your property is and exactly how you're zoned, is gonna depend on what kind of fence you can have. So you might be able to have a 4-foot fence, but you might be able to go up to 8 feet. If you got a big dog, you're gonna need a tall fence. But you might not be able to have a tall fence. So you're gonna have to have a small dog. Fences within the this is 2.10-3. Fences within the minimum required front yard. So you gotta have a required front yard. So it shall be of decorative material, which will conceal or replace a wire fence. Chain link fence? Sorry, can't do a chain link fence. Might upset somebody. So 2.13-2, a chain link or similar shall be inside a masonry wall. Well, if I got a masonry wall, it's probably not tall enough, which is why I need a chain link fence. Or it could be inside a solid wood fence, again, or a decorative fence of same or greater height, which demonstrates effective screening. So now I got 2 fences. Or I might have a chain link fence, but then I gotta plant all this shrubbery that, I hope it's not a tree, shrubbery to cover up the fence, so we gotta make it pretty, so we can keep our dog in, or the neighbor's dog out, whatever. So, this plan, as it is, dictates how you're gonna use your property, which I find very offensive.
Yeah.
There are 450 pages of similar discussion. I've got one that it blew me away. This is 12.10. RVs, towing trailers, and boats cannot be parked or stored on the street of your residence, or on the front side or rear yard of the setbacks at your residence. The reason I'm bringing that up, it is a litany of things of this nature. Now, what I really want to mention, I keep hearing your grandfather. I got a little story about being grandfather. Federal government grandfathered me about 10 years ago. I don't remember the exact year. They said that I could keep my health insurance. I was not gonna lose my health insurance, and I could keep it the rest of my life. Well, 3 years later, they took my health insurance away. The point I'm making, I'm not gonna give you the full story on the health insurance, because it ticks me off every time I go there. But the point I'm making is, with it's not explicitly written in a document that you're grandfathered, they can do whatever they want to do.
That's right.
And that concerns me greatly. We're not residents, we don't get to vote. But we are property owners, have been for 39 years. I care greatly about it. Thank you.
May I make one little comment to what he said? The thing there is, we have no idea who the board of aldermen and women for the town of Newland will be 5 years from today, 10 years from today. And what he just said concerns me, if the board, you know,
Who's enforcing?
who will be making the decisions 10 years from now?
Thank you. First off, I'm Mike Nelson on the campground. The RV section really concerns me. First off, I spent $1 million buying that piece of property. I put 1.7 million in it so far. And now, and I house probably 5 people free of charge. Do not charge them a dime. The town police come to me and said there's a homeless man living in a tent. I put him in a brand new structure, free of charge. I help a lot of people. I paved streets that's got potholes in them, just trying to help them. This really concerns me because it's gonna change the way my business is. If I go to sell it, I'm out of compliance. You can stand there and say that. But if I'm not in compliance, the bank will only loan 55% of the total value. So that puts me from like 7 million down to 3 or 4. And you stand here and say that 2 of probably the most intelligent men and the prosperous businessman in this town is mistaken. That offends me. And as you did, I mean, that's insulting to them, and they're too nice to say it, but I'm not. So you need to watch how you talk to people like that. They're very intelligent men, and they don't misinterpret stuff like this. So I'm saying, shoot it down, because I'm telling you, if you pass it, I own that property. I'll continue doing what I'm doing. I have a man that's got 1 leg on dialysis. He lives there, lost his house, everything, bought a new camper with what he had left. He lives there at a reduced rate until he dies. And you're saying they can only stay 150 days? Tell you what, come and tell him to move. I'll be offended then. It's not right. I mean, and I'm not knocking the planning board. I think there ought to be rules and there ought to be certain things, but this is wrong. It's gonna hurt Avery County, because who would bring a business in here with all these structures? There's not enough population. Do you think I'm gonna bring and spend $2 million here if I could go to Johnson City and Boone and go through the same stuff? The population's 10 times. So why would you come to a little town like Newland where there's not that much money, when you could go somewhere else and pay the same amount of price and have a lot more population, a lot more business? You just need to think about that.
Well, I just want to say and I think if I'm misspeaking for our group, please, the planning committee, feel free to hit me and say no. It's not an us versus them. We live right here. And when we sat down and we started to go through all these things, we were asked to volunteer our time and our energy to try to do the homework, to present the best things for the future with the vision of the town in mind, to do the right thing. No one here is wrong with their concerns. It's not a right or wrong situation. It is, we have to have a starting point somewhere. And, you know, I didn't do it, but I'm sorry that everyone felt like this was the voting and this was it. And if we didn't do this tonight, then that was because we've always been under the understanding it's a work in progress. If you would see the paperwork every week that we would rip out, and this is the old stuff and this color's the new stuff, and this is we still are in question about this and need to make a decision about. We spent a lot of time coming through these things, and it was never the intent for it to be an us versus them. Like, we live here, we have the same interest in bringing businesses in so that it can grow and bring housing in for people so that,
This plan restricts every bit of that.
but, and it's It's okay, so defensive it's on okay. Facebook if anyone argues against you, so everything you just said doesn't seem right. Well, I don't get on Facebook and do that kind of junk. I'm not they, you know that?
This plan is completely against everything you just said.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that that's exactly what these conversations are for, is for people to come forward and
I
say.
work 2 jobs and I'm a father. I can't keep coming to these meetings. I have a job to do.
Right.
I don't want this at all.
So the people that are volunteering their job, they don't have a job to do in raising children either?
Don't put words in my mouth.
Well, I don't know,
never
because
said
that's
that.
exactly the same thing.
I'd suggest that you, who spoke up for it? Who wants this plan? I've heard everybody speak, no one said that they're for it.
How long have you lived here?
7 years.
How long have you lived here back? You moved back here?
I moved back in January, but my family's been here for probably 100 years plus.
How long have you lived here, Teresa?
We've owned the house in town since 1945. Does that count?
None of you live here.
I'm not quite, you're not on the panel. And I think you had a very good explanation of housing they're putting in at the last meeting.
So if you had a concern about us when we first started on the planning committee that we didn't live here long enough or we didn't meet the requirements for what you wanted, why didn't you say so then instead of appointing us?
If I may, what I'd like to do is make a public comment. This is a public comment hearing, not a personal battle between personalities, if I may finish. So, raise your hand if you actually live in Newland. Raise your hand if you remember when Claude Hughes still had the store. Raise your hand if you ever sold Coke bottles back to Claude Hughes. Okay? Raise your hand if you remember when the light down here, what used to be the Holiness Church, was a blinking yellow light. Okay, so.
I've lived here since before it was alive.
Right. So if y'all remember those things, I think a lot of passion that goes into our strong feelings about Newland is the fact that that's what we remember. That is what we love about this town. I can walk across town. I know where he lives. I know where he lives. I know where he lives. I don't know where you all live, but that's only because I have never been by y'all's house or you've told me where you live. But these are real things. Roby's Bottom used to actually be a cow pasture. Raise your hand if you remember seeing the piles of cow poop in Roby's Bottom. Raise your hand if you ever went there and dug up worms to go fishing at the Old Toe, right? Best place in town to get the biggest, nastiest worms ever. Raise your hands if you bought fish hooks over here at Avery Hardware. Okay. My point being, these are all the things that we love about this. But she's right, we have to have a starting point. Because I live in town. I've seen the changes just being here full-time for the last 4 to 5 years. It's a blowback. And I understand that people have passion about being in Avery County or having history here. But having that passion and doing nothing erodes the town. Property values will continue to erode. We can't continue at the pace we are, cramming the business in, cramming the traffic in. I now have to wait 3 light cycles just to get to the post office. That is not what we used to be. That is the intention of this. There has to be some boundaries.
I mean, and if you want folks to come into town so that the town will continue to flourish and not die.
They won't be able to afford to conform to this plan.
And I have to say, I'm very proud of Mike Nelson. He stood up and just admitted that he had spent so much money in this town. As a local individual, why are locals not considered investors? He is an investor in the town of Newland and has lived here his whole life. We have plenty of old money in this town, or plenty of people who have come in and been willing to give a portion of their trust and hope in the future of Newland. It's not like we're dying, guys. We're not as bad off as we are now that it's been drained.
I just wanted to add really quick though, I really don't understand your question. I don't. I find it personally offensive, And I could give you a story because I walk my dog every day through town. A lot of people see me doing it. And I went by one time, a couple guys were working at the Presbyterian Church, and he said, "Oh, where are you from?" And I go, "I'm from here." "Well, how long you been here?" At the time, I'd been here 5 years. "Oh, add a 0, then you can say you're from here." Really? I can't tell you the number of places that I've lived. I have a freaking PhD and 2 master's degrees. I'm like, come on. because I'm not from here, that I hate it every time I hear it. I am from here now, you know, so I'm for here, and that's why I'm at the meeting. I love the history that's here. I'm not dumping on people who have been here 120 years, but it's not me and it'll never be me. I got 7, you know, but I still love it and I'm still passionate about being here, so.
By the way, you can't walk your dog off your property. I think it's a typo that your dog can't leave your property. But I think it's a typo.
Yeah.
I think she means to say without.
Sir, I just think maybe the board might want to examine the idea that we have a commission-based individual up here who could have possibly seen a weaker board because it's a brand-new planning committee of people who were appointed to attempt to fix the town, has created this massive document that does not apply to most of the things in Newland, and then we were gonna have to go back again and edit it and pay him again. Or we can just say we've messed up.
That's not how that works though with them.
Well, you know, I just think it doesn't.
Let Rick, I just want to, I mean, because it's not how it.
Commissioner Sluter's speak, he's raised his hand several times and no one.
I don't live in Newland, but I've spent as much time making beautification in Newland as anyone here. You talk about you don't get paid. I've never got paid for anything I've done in Newland, which is the river walk, a lot of the shrubbery that you see around, the waterfalls out here and everything, and it's tremendous. The one thing I think I heard that in the book, 450 pages, is you don't want no murals on the walls. Is that correct?
Faces Main Street.
Well, I spent 2 years of getting one on the wall, which is a Coca-Cola company. I spent 2 years of getting that redone. They're supposed to redo it, and I've heard that it's there that you can't redo it. But in 4, 5, 6 years, I forget what's the contract, they're supposed to come back and redo it. Well, many people comes to lots of towns, see murals on the wall. I've got one wall right now. It's Bruce Lacey's building that we want to paint a mural on it because it's just a plain black concrete wall right now. People love to see murals, and why you all don't see that, I don't understand it. Because it's something that, go to Ashe County. Go to Ashe County and see the murals over there. Go to Burnsville, see the murals over there on that wall, on those walls. And to me, I feel like that this whole plan, and I may ask, have you all read the 450 pages?
Not all of it.
I rest my case. I do. That check is for round track, no, it's not to pay me off.
Pay you off. Pay you off.
Members of the public, members of the board, what I'd like to mention to you is I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm hearing, and from my experience, it's not about the details, it's about the scope, okay? And I'm not trying to insult anyone, but some people are misinterpreting those provisions. So what I want to suggest to you is that we have our session together, but I've also started to formulate exactly what surgically to do to this. Whether, or, you know, what level of standards you want. The other way to do it is to say, okay, what is it you like and dislike? And that's what we did in our interviews. That's what we did with, we had 30% of the residents respond to the online stuff.
But why are you just doing residents of Newland?
Well, we did the downtown too.
Why didn't you do property owners within the town of Newland? My family owns 7 buildings. I mean, we should have at least
We
been
pushed
asked.
it out there, and if people saw it and could respond, we pushed it with, working with the town staff to get it out there.
Well, I never heard it.
Nobody
May I say one more thing? May I say one more thing? Newland has got 450 pages. Correct me if I'm wrong. Blowing Rock has got 150.
The city of Houston has not.
I didn't say one thing to Tracy. You said when you say people are misinterpreting it, really, down the road, if this gets passed, it doesn't matter what you say, it's the king. The administrator of this ordinance is the one that's gonna make every decision.
And you're absolutely right.
Or the Board of Adjustment, so that's a touchy thing right there.
You're absolutely right, sir, that it does require the administrator to be professional.
May I make a suggestion? Take it or leave it. Why don't the board, the planning board, start and figure out what they wanna do instead of hiring somebody and paying big money to adopt from Rowan County? Is that where that was adopted from? Or
This has been adopted in a lot of counties, a lot of times.
so why don't the planning
How
board
many is small as you?
work together and ask the people and work with the people? And I know it's a lot of time and you're kind of going back to square one. You wasted $80-some thousand you paid him. But why not do that? Start and work your way back.
But when will it ever happen again that we have everybody here?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's
Well-
fired up right now, but if we did that,
But if they don't
Everybody's
show
gotta
up,
work. They
well, if
can't
they don't
come.
show up, then it's
Until the
their fault.
time.
I
And
mean,
then we
if
do
they
it
don't show
again,
up, it's our
everybody
fault,
be here.
then you can announce it publicly.
Our next meeting is August 8th.
There you go.
we'll,
Right here.
We'll have you do that because I'm so happy to see everybody here.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I'm glad. I'm glad y'all are fired up.
I'm assuming that the town is in contract, with the firm.
We were told at the last meeting they were done, okay?
That's exactly where I was going. Or,
So,
or
if
more,
we're done, then we're done.
I was gonna say, are you committed to more time already for the town? Or is what they have paid for, what we have all paid for, is that done?
The project was, once the planning board makes a recommendation, we're done drafting. Then we go into working with the governing board, and then we go into revisions. Then we have from the date of the adoption, we have a 2-year period where we provide administrative support, which deals with any legislative updates, things of that nature. Okay? And we're not gonna come do their job, do Bill's job for him. You know, somebody comes in and talks to them about
Is
doing
that-
the
Is all
project.
that covered in what's already been
Yes.
paid to your firm?
Yeah, that's what I said.
And I
He's
told
cut
them
into
that,
us
I
for
said,
years.
in fact, ma'am, I told the planning board, I said, we can circle back. If the board goes ahead and adopts, we can circle back and do some polishing. Did I say that?
The polishing costs are located in our 500-page binder, and polishing costs include a $150 travel rate when you have to travel here, $2,000 per workshop, $150.
That's beyond the scope. That's the stuff that's outside of the scope of our work.
Which would mean,
If you.
After 2
if-
years.
if- Let's say that we get a call, to come back and do some additional work. That's the stuff.
next week?
No, 2 years, after the 2 years time is up.
Related to this.
Sorry.
Started August 8th last year, so we're already a year.
I thought we just got a bill from you for the travel and all that.
I don't know about the bills, Patty does that, but, yeah, there's reimbursables in there. It's not a lump sum, there's reimbursables in there.
Simple question, when does the 84,000 run out? At what point do the town have to start paying you for additional work? At what point? It's that simple.
Do we have an attorney in here present?
Well, there's two things. Number one, there's the basic work, which after we're done with all the revisions, that would happen when it's adopted. After that, we are here to support for 2 years on the administrative support of it. But from what y'all are saying, you're not happy with what we've done.
Right.
So my suggestion is, before we get to when are we finished, let's figure out what the finished looks like. You know, we need to get you guys in the room. Now, I'm gonna say this about the governing board, because as everybody in here knows, good or bad, I shoot straight with you, right? Now, I have encouraged from day one for the board members to try to attend the planning board meetings if they can. It's real simple. All they have to do is say that there would be a possible quorum present, that no action by the governing board would be taken, so that you're all there kind of listening along the way, so you're further along. So in the work sessions, we're actually gonna be picking you up way back near the beginning of where the planning board.
No, I read it.
They're way ahead of
She's
you
been doing,
guys
she
as
came in
far
like
as
halfway
the
through, so
details.
she.
But you're ahead, because in the last meeting, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, well, we've gotta get this done because we don't want the HUD housing at the old Lowe's parking lot. I mean, and I watched that today. I mean, I rewatched it today because I was taking notes, and that's what they said. We gotta hurry up and get this done so they don't start building. Because I guess, I don't know how that works, but once you start building, if you're grandfathered in, I mean, I don't know that part. But I know that I heard somebody say that they had to get this done because that was the reason.
And the reasoning on the transcript, as I read from YouTube, was brings an undesirable crowd of people that's going to be renting, no taxes. It's really gonna hurt our property values, and it's gonna hurt the town. That's what it said.
Oh, yeah,
That's the
that's
reason.
why I rewatched it. That's
Can I
why
ask a question? Okay, how many meetings has the planning board had?
Don't deflect this back on the board.
No.
No.
What I'm gonna say is, how many meetings have y'all had since October? Was
I think the first one was in November.
Since November.
And then you
Last
guys,
month was our last.
right, you guys, finished the initial draft, the ragu, which we said, we start with putting everything in there. And it's easier to yank it out than it is to make something
To go
up on
after and
the fly.
put it in.
Okay, then.
So it's about 8 months, 7 or 8 months.
Then Chris, I am gonna ask that. I've been at the meetings in the last 2 months.
We have to.
And they have begged for y'all to come to the planning board. Jamie, how many of those meetings?
Been present for one and watched them online.
There are 5 listed on YouTube, 5.
Gail? Chrissy? Okay, I think out here on the marquee out here, it advertises whenever the planning boards,
Mm-hmm.
that's open to everybody. How many of y'all have attended any of those meetings?
I didn't even know this was even happening the last week.
I mean, I'm just
I didn't know it's
wondering, does nobody
They
pay
do mail
attention?
things, don't get on tax list. I don't get on.
Well, I know it's in the
I'm
newspaper.
not asking about the internet, I'm just saying.
No, but that's how you notice everybody.
how many
What about an old person
times-
like me that doesn't get on there?
I know,
The
I'm not saying
newspaper,
that.
it's in the newspaper,
I'm
it's in the
just saying,
newspaper.
How many times do we go past this board, how many times do we go?
You read that board when you come in here.
Yeah, I do, I actually do, because I know what's going on in the town, now, the trucks are gonna be here, I know those kinds of things. You know, so my thing is come to these planning boards, help these people, they're begging y'all, they're begging me, come to these meetings. That way, we can all have an input.
I have a simple question. I don't think you have to have just town residents. I know we got some business owners in here tonight, I
Yes.
see them. How many of y'all would volunteer to be on the planning board if we revamped it? 1, 2, 3.
Revamped. Are you gonna listen if the people on the board?
I sat on the planning board 20 years ago. It was not
It was
pretty.
not good.
Here?
Yes. I had
Prior
been in town
administration.
meetings for 20 years, and I was told by my wife my blood pressure was going through the roof. I had to quit coming because I couldn't. I will say, I'm gonna say this very loudly, very loudly. I have gotten the impression for 39 years that the town wants my tax money to keep my mouth shut because I'm a business.
That's not gonna happen.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I feel.
Not anymore.
We can't grow if we don't have tax money from businesses.
Well, the businesses pay over 50%, but I was never felt welcome. I've always been pushed aside and shoved away, and I'm telling you, that's how it's been. And to answer your question, I don't know about the meetings. I work 80 hours a week minimum. I don't get a chance to read the paper. I don't do Facebook. I don't see anything. I received no notice of any survey or anything else on this. Nothing.
Until we got this, same.
2 weeks ago. That was
It's
it.
the wrong
First
day
time.
of the week on it.
And some people that said.
Well, now y'all know. Let's all get
I was just saying, I think we're at the point, like, okay, we get everyone didn't like the way it went down, but we're here now. Yeah,
Let's move
because it's not an us versus they.
This is the last time I'm gonna speak. I think I was the principal in elementary school too long. I think, I've been in chairs in meetings, similar school stuff. I think the best thing to do is to axe this, maybe have a planning board to do things that will help the town, but not have all of these statutes and things that, number one, are hard to explain. Number two, no one understands them. Number three, they change, if the least little thing changes, then that changes, like our Lacey friends have said. And back out, because all we're doing is making the town look worse and worse and worse. And that falls back on you all. And you're trying to do a good job. But it's coming down to your reputations are being ruined with stuff like this.
It's the mayor's fault.
And
I say it out loud, I did
I am
That's Slim.
I'm 75 years old, and I have lived in the city limits for 75 years. My husband is the only person that worked 30 years for the town of Newland and retired here. And the first 17, he was the only one in public works. And he did it all, never complained, and it got done. So,
We have one now that.
and we have one doing a great job, yes. But I'm telling you folks, it's damaging to not only the town, but it's damaging to your all's reputation.
I can't hold a light to everybody else that spoke here. I personally, I've been reading the contract, for Refocus, Task Force Draft Cope Implementation Strategy. I'm not a good public speaker. I'll go ahead and get that out there. I got several questions, probably won't get answered, because we can always go back and change things as the answer we're getting now. I think if you start with a plan or you enact laws, you start where you need to be and you build on them. You don't take away. I guess section 2 in task 4 says about new. Can you tell us anything about new in the contract?
Part of what we have to do is we have to learn the community fast, because like I said in my first meeting with this board, what I've said to the planning board is we have to catch up fast. And we start them on some boring stuff while we're learning the town. And we learn the town as best we can.
I know this town. I worked here as a police officer. I'm still employed as a police officer. I have no problem with zoning, but this is completely too expensive for the town. You can't even abide by most of this stuff. And I got another question about the contract, but general statute lays out a lot of this. I keep hearing it's mandated. Well, there is a general statute that pertains to most of this. It's 1,430 sections, I believe. I've tried to read some of it. I'm not a lawyer. I can't cipher out a lot of this stuff. But we mentioned the Board of Adjustments. That requires a 4/5 vote. That's not a majority vote. It's a 4/5 vote. I go to a bunch of meetings, I sit in this meeting. You can't get 2 people to agree on one thing. So how are we gonna get, if I need a variance or whatever, am I gonna get 4 people to decide on my side? Are you gonna get 4 people to side on your side? It's not you, but if you were on the Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustments, you have to get a 4/5 vote. Not a majority vote, a 4/5 vote.
That's what the book said.
That's actually a state statute.
That's a state
Variance,
statute.
everything else is a simple.
Well, that's what we're asking about, is variances. You're gonna change all this, leave it up to some people get to make a decision. That's the people that has to decide. And you've gotta get a 4/5 vote from those people. So, under variances, in the ordinance, section 6.1, I just wanna point this out, because it really sticks with me. This is the general statute, 160D, 705D. It is not intended that variances be granted merely to remove inconveniences or financial burdens. Who's to say that you don't have a financial burden to need a variance? That's state law. If this is enacted, a financial burden will not grant you a variance. So bear with me here. It's been a long day. Right below that, ordinance may be imposed on property owners in general or to increase the profitability of a proposed development. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. Ordinance may be imposed on property owners in general or to increase the profitability of a proposed ordinance. That's that same statute. Who's profited from it? Who's gonna profit from it? The people that profit from it's gonna change the rules. We move all these people in here that's gonna take we've all carried the burden of the taxpayers on our back since I've lived here. I own 14 acres of land in NEWLAND. It was bought with hard-earned money. It belonged to my wife's family. And I work hard to keep it up. I can't keep coming to this every other day, month, week. I work 2 jobs. I'm a father. I got stuff to tend to. I have to work so I can pay the taxes to keep the town going. And so do all these other people. We ain't got time to sit in here and talk about this. I mean, yeah, it's great. But let's get a plan for NEWLAND. I worked here, I've listened to bickering back and forth. The town don't have money, they don't. This needs fixed. Fix it. Well, something else breaks. That's the story of life. Who pays for it? Taxpayers pay for it. And I pay taxes. It blows my mind that there's so much in here that you can't even take in. The section 6.2-6, following an appeal. The appeal shall be accompanied by fees as established by the town. What's those fees? Are they gonna go up? Are they gonna stay the same? If I wanna cut a tree, I gotta get a permit. If I wanna build onto my house, I gotta get a permit. At what point? I'm paying taxes. I own the property, I take care of it, I take pride in it. I want it to be passed down to the next generation. I just don't understand how, I think the board was misled, the Board of Aldermen was misled with the whole plan in general. Did you all expect to get a book that big handed to you? What was taken out of it?
Well, it was empty when we
It was much
got
more
it.
bigger than that.
And we added every week or every month.
I understand that. If all this stuff's been taken out, where did it start at? The town don't have the money to pay their bills. So, how much money was wasted on this, the paper to print it on, the time that was spent on all of it? I mean, I could go on, and I can't make a argument like some people here have. I'm just a hard-working person that pays my taxes, and I like to be left alone. And if I want to do something, if I want to cut a tree, if I want to build a tree house for my daughter to build a swing set, a swimming pool, a slip and slide. I mean, you guys are gonna tell me I can't do it. Where's the American dream at? What are we working for? I had a couple more things here. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I've heard no one, I've said here, I said at the last meeting, 3.5 hours to speak against this. I have no ill will intention. I applaud the planning board for their looking at this. I couldn't have done it. I have to work. I just think at this point, how are we gonna keep going down this road of changing things, fixing this, fixing that? We started off with this plan, and truthfully, I don't think we have enough money to pay this guy on September the 1st. We owe him $28,000 and some dollars. Where's that gonna come from? The police officers here didn't get a raise this year because of misspending, or whatever you wanna call it. I don't know what that raise equated to. Where's his money coming from? We cut. We talked about losing a police officer. Do I want zoning and planning, or do I want a police officer when I call somebody to come protect me? I can't wrap my head around it. It's not that I'm not open-minded to some changes, but the bicycle stuff, I don't get it. 23.4 enforcement intent. It's the intent of this ordinance, unless otherwise provided, that all questions arising in connection with enforcement of this ordinance shall be presented first to the king.
True.
Furthermore, that such questions shall be presented to the Board of Adjustments only on appeal from written determination made by the king.
And the king's part of the staff of the Board of Adjustments.
Who's the Board of Adjustments? They
We don't
exist
have
yet.
He doesn't have one
Don't have
yet.
one,
If
but
nothing is
there was votes
finalized.
on a ballot.
There's
at
30
an election
pages of
for those.
landscape design in this. 30 pages of landscaping design in this plan. I think I wrote down 30 pages. 11.6 landscape requirements. There shall be a penalty of $500 per day for failure to install required landscape material or to replace dead landscape material, beginning with the date of the citation is issued and ending when the site is in compliance.
Who issues the citation?
So those 30 pages, you could potentially be fined $500 per day for that. And we want to talk about collections and civil penalties. Bruce mentioned it, okay, we got a good case. We go to court, we think we're gonna win. Guess what? We don't win. Who pays the town's attorney? I do. Who pays my attorney? I do. Where are we gonna get the money to fight it? Where does it come from? The Superior Court, yes, 30 pages of landscaping design, $500 per day. Back to the tree cutting. I work for a municipality that has very stringent tree cutting ordinance. I call it a tree cutting ordinance. I have never seen such as this. You cut a 36+ inch tree off your property. You need firewood, whatever. $4,000. You pay the town $4,000.
On property, you pay taxes on that you own, right?
Absolutely. And that's not it. Reforestation. 4-inch trees. You plant 5 of those. I don't know if anybody here's in the nursery business. How much 5 trees cost you to replace? Take a day off work to plant them.
That's how you're gonna be able to afford it.
Like I said, this is just, It's way, way, way more than what Newland ever intended on. I think when you all sat here and was pitched this plan about hiring a company to come in and help us out and stuff, you know, that's great. But it was never expected to have this much to it. Yeah, you know, your junk cars, we've got ordinances already. There's ordinances here. Nobody enforces them. You just get it.
There's no enforcement behind it.
Nobody enforces.
There's nobody to do it. The town don't have money to pay people. If you enact this plan, you're gonna have board meetings every other day, here and there. You're gonna get 50 people flood in here to get variances and all this stuff. These board members that have jobs, like you said, somebody's gonna have to sit down here and listen to people like me tell you that it's not what I want. And then they get to make a decision with a 4/5 vote. I got one more thing. Going back to the fines and penalties, 23.6 remedies, injunction. Any violation of this ordinance or of any condition, order, or requirement or remedy adopted pursuant thereto may be restrained, corrected, abated. Abated means you vacate your property. That's an abatement. When you can't pay the fines that they're imposing on you, time to move. The town gets your property. Who's gonna pay taxes on that? Abated, mandated, or enjoyed by other appropriate proceedings pursuant to state law. Civil penalties. 23.6-2, any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be subject to the assessment of civil penalties under the procedures provided in this section. I mean, I can't sit up here and read all this, but I was talking about the tree stuff, 23.7 civil penalties, assessments, procedures. Any person who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be subject to assessment of a civil penalty in the amount prescribed for the first of each consecutive violation of the same provision. The following penalties are hereby established. There's a charge of penalties. You get a warning citation. The king comes and tells you to correct your problem. Your first citation is $100. Your second citation is $300. Your third citation for the same offense is $500. If the offender fails to pay the civil penalties within 15 days, I get paid every 2 weeks. I got 15 days to come up with this penalty that somebody told me I was doing wrong on my own property to pay taxes. Days after having been cited, the town may recover the penalties and cost of collection, including attorney's fees and court costs. You don't just pay the $500. You pay the attorney fees, you pay the court costs. And if you want to hire an attorney, you pay them too. I don't know if the planning board's read all this stuff. You know, I don't know. I've watched some of the meetings online. It's hard to hear. And like I said, I can't sit and watch all this stuff. I wish I could. Well, really, I don't. I'll be doing something I enjoy, like riding my motorcycle or playing with my kids. 23.7-2. No civil penalty shall be assessed until the person alleged violation has been notified, which that's great. The king comes and tells you your violation, they give you a warning. If you don't fix it, you get fined. I'll hush after this one. 1.12 compliance. No building, premise, or structure shall be constructed, erected, modified, converted, occupied, placed, maintained, or moved. And no land use shall be commenced. The land I pay taxes on that keeps the town running, keep that in mind. I can't use it for what I want to use it for. I'm not building a slaughterhouse, I'm not building a paving plant, I'm not putting in a racetrack. But if I want to build a fence, have a swimming pool, I think I deserve that right.
For your son to do.
Maintained or modified except as authorized by this ordinance. No applicable permit shall be issued or granted that does not conform to the requirements of this ordinance. That's That's about all I have. But sir, I don't know if you'll get paid your $28,000 because the town don't have it.
That's what I heard last time I was here.
Everybody's looking at me. I guess I'll say something. Rick Patton, Bidman Trucking. I'm not allowed to vote in the city of NEWLAND because I don't live here. We've had a business here since 2000. And I didn't know what people wanted me to say when I got here. Say, why do they want me to come here? I don't know what to say. Never been to a meeting. I've never read the first word in that 500-page book y'all got. I hate to read. I can't see fine print either. But I've heard a whole lot about what's in it tonight. And I hope I don't turn into a sissy here. Because when I talk from my heart, I turn into a sissy. And I can only tell you guys, people in the city of NEWLAND, and the people that own businesses in this town that don't live in NEWLAND, that the reason we're here is because we like NEWLAND, because we like Avery County. I've been here 65 years. Started driving a school bus for this county when I was 16. Turned 16 in December, started driving a school bus in January. Drove every route in the county. And I've seen people come in they want to come in and change Avery County. This man right here says he come in here, wants to keep it the same. And but all I can tell you all is what I've learned from experience. And we're all here because we don't want to live in Statesville, the town that he fixed. I don't want to live in Statesville. I don't want to live in Charlotte. I was in Boston last week. I don't want to live in Boston. I drive a truck. I see the country. I like to go see it. Of all the places I've been to, I've been to 49 states and Canada. Avery County is where I want to live. I want my children to grow up, my grandchildren. And I don't want it to change. You all talk about growth. What kind of growth are we going to accomplish? What kind of growth are we going to accomplish here? I'm going to throw Rick under the bus here, from what I've seen tonight. There's been three times in Pittman Trucking's history. There was a guy come in, knocked on my door. I was working out of my house. And we've had to refinance our house. Town of NEWLAND's in debt. Now, somebody said $20 million. That's a lot of money. I don't have to pay you to help the game. That's what and that's not, but somebody said that tonight.
No, that's $20 million to fix our.
Oh, $20 million to fix what we gotta fix?
Fix the septic.
Fix the septic sewer. Okay. But anyhow, Pittman Trucking had to refinance, and I had to refinance our home 3 times to stay in business. And finally, my wife said, "You do that again, we're done." So thank the Lord that we haven't had to do it since she said that. Haven't seen the Bible here. Well, I hope don't get on no rabbit chasing, no rabbit holes. We haven't mentioned the Bible here much. I think most of y'all are God-fearing people. You can look in the book of Samuel, 1st or 2nd Samuel, and I wish I could quote scripture so I could be a preacher. But the Israelites wanted a king. So we got to have a king. So God told Samuel, give them a king. And when they got the king, then they got all kinds of taxes. And life was really made hard on them. Maybe somebody can tell me the exact scripture there. But I see some people in the city of NEWLAND want to fix by taxes. And we got to pay taxes. I've paid taxes since I started driving that old school bus. Haven't paid them in town yet. But yeah, forgive me if I get down some rabbit hole. There was a man come to my business 3 times, Pittman Trucking. He wearing a black trench coat, had a bunch of books in his hand. He said, I can show you how to be profitable. I can show you how to make money. I said, that's okay, I'll make it on my own. I hope the town of NEWLAND can make it on their own. He left. Come back again a year or two, same deal. So 3rd time, I said, okay, sit down here, pull you up a chair at the desk, show me how to make money. So he sat there all day long, scratching, writing, how much this, that, and the other. He come up with a, it wasn't 450 pages, it was only about 3 or 4. So this is all you gotta do, right here. I looked at it. It was, all you gotta do is hire more drivers, pay them more money, buy more trucks. Duh. That's it. I said, okay, thank you. What owe you? You owe me $300. And I'll be back tomorrow to fine tune this if you want. I said, no. Wrote him a check for $300, sent him down the road. I hope the city of NEWLAND can figure out where their money's going and where they need to put it. And you don't have to pay somebody to come and tell you how to do that. This man said he give you 450 some pages of stuff to do. And you all told him you didn't like it. I don't like it. And they said, okay, whoa, give me some, I'm pretty sure that the end of the deal is going, I'll fix that for you. We'll cut it down, change it. You're going to pay me some more money to do that. No?
Nope. In fact, that's my closing statement, is I've got a lot of good information from everybody here. And I've got a recommendation for you, not to vote on anything, but if you do anything, to scale it down, and I know about where you might want to think about scaling, unless you want to not have any standards, and that's up to you. And that's perfectly legitimate. If you decide not to have any standards, that's your call. But if you want to have any standards for new development, and I'm not talking about somebody add a bathroom or something like that, I'm talking about a new parties or whatever, then we can do that. Or you can do nothing. I mean, that's up to you. We're here to help you get to that finish line and make your decision. That's what we're here for. And we're not trying to cram anything down anybody's throat. The Ragu has it all in there, which normally we pull it out because it's easier to show you what it looks like for somebody to say, well, what if we want to do this, or what if we want to do that? It's a lot easier for me to show you what that looks like. Is that right anymore? That's the way I handled it. I gave them kind of the full menu, and then they can pull out. I know you don't really want to hear that, but I'm just shooting straight with it, so.
These girls, these volunteers here, I admire them. They give up their time that I didn't, and I can't. I'm like him here. I work maybe 60, 80 hours a week. But has this man attended all your meetings or all your meetings?
Yeah.
When somebody sits and tells you what a good deal you've got every time, and pardon this language, but brainwashes you guys. Tells you what a good deal I'm giving you. What a good deal I'm giving you.
He's not giving us any deal though.
Well, no, he ain't giving you no money. He's just telling you what a good deal it is for the town. You have to watch. You have to watch. There's been 3 or 4 people here said they don't want to give up their freedom. They've worked hard for what they have. I've worked hard for what little stuff I have. I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm old man. And God's going to come and get me. But these other younger people here, my kids, my grandkids, that are going to have to live here. You guys, I know some of you I don't. I hope you guys make the right decisions here. Because if you're not careful, you're going to set our future generations up to have to deal with some really hard people that might come in and take your all's place. I appreciate the time y'all put in here and these people. And forgive me for not giving time to the town into the county like I wish it did. I'll go.
No one ever spoke my husband, no one ever speaks to me. For 7 years, I sat in one of those chairs. I fought some ugly battles. I think I started at what, the age of 27? I chose to step up and try to do something better, for the greater good for my community. For 7 years. I fought some ugly battles and I made some tough decisions. I realized quickly you cannot please everyone, but you can make sound decisions based on morals, character, and the real, actual greater good. Not greater. NEWLAND has an existential crisis. I've said this for a long time. There are two separate narratives of those who come to these meetings and show interest in the town. There's two separate narratives of people that either get on the board. It's not necessarily left and right. There's just two different perspectives that NEWLAND has always had with a little disconnect going on. But the sad part is there's little interest in compromise. Respectfully, the only fair way, in my opinion, that zoning ordinances and appointment of the king and the individuals that will serve on this board of adjustments is for those individuals to be placed on a ballot at a local municipal election. Now, I still know, I'm smart enough, I brought it up. I realize that still opens us up to vulnerability because many of our citizens don't vote, don't come, don't care, don't know. That's actually a big one. Many of our citizens pick up folks to take them to vote for their cause, just asking them to blindly vote for whomever they suggest. Happens on both sides, I can promise you. That's where I urge you as citizens, please keep up with these meetings. If I was willing to give up my time and effort at 27 years of age, I promise you, I couldn't do anything else. But I came here and I tried to fix NEWLAND, as you might think or say. But I really hate in my heart that I have to resort to Facebook to get the crowd that's here. But it's shown to be quite effective. Tonight, as one of the board members whenever I was on the board, when I was there, I had an open mind. I voted to consider this and explore the options. I did know we had a little orange notebook, an antiquated set of ordinances, but they kind of did touch on the majority of issues. There was one about strip clubs and things, by the way. But I do regret, at this point that we have come, I regret my decision to open-mindedly explore this. But it would have been closed-minded of me to not be willing to at least hear and explore the options. But we've explored enough alongside Dora, so let's get to the real point. Board members, I love y'all, all y'all, I do. But I urge you to vote tonight to dissolve the planning board until it can go to the ballot for the citizens to elect to those who would serve as the planning board members, the king and the planning board of adjustments. That's one vote I'm asking you to do tonight. Second motion, I hate that I can't raise it myself anymore. I urge you to vote no to this. No to going any further with this. Let's get NEWLAND back on its feet first, get fiscally sound and grounded, get all the kinks worked out. I know we're never gonna get $18 million worth of sewer and water treatment plants restored and fixed, but this needs to wait. This needs to wait. So I urge you guys, put it to a vote tonight. We'll call Dave Calvert. I may vote on the phone. Maybe you will. I'm saying it. Vote tonight to nip this in the bud until we actually need to progress with this when we are in a better position as a town. That's all I'm saying.
One thing, other than the planning board members, I've not heard anybody else speak for the plan, for this. I've heard one side. Is there anybody else that's not on the planning board?
We're not even, just like with our exact duty too, our job as the planning board was to get the information, to sort through it and present it to the aldermen.
I'm very aware of the General Statute 160, okay? I've read 800 of the 1,400 sections. I'm very aware of that. I'm asking, is anyone else in this room for this? That's not on the planning board. Because I've yet to hear anybody that's not on the planning board that is for this. I see nobody. Somebody might want to ask them out in the hall.
I'll stick my neck out and say I am for this. I believe that there's a lot that we need to revise, and we have heard everybody's concerns. but I do believe that to bring Newland up to modern times, there should be some sort of standards.
There's 50 people here, we got one. 75, I don't know how many people's here. We got one.
I had spoken earlier. I
I said
believe
that's
that we
not
need to
on the
have.
planning board.
I'm not on the planning board.
Okay. We got 2.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I think Lauren just said that there are some, ordinances on the books.
Yeah.
Where do we get a copy of those so that we can see what's already
You can
here?
Google them. You can
Town
Google them.
ordinance, yeah. Get 'em on there.
They're on the town's website. They're antiquated. I don't know when they were put into place, but that's where this should have started.
That's exactly what my intention on the board.
And then build to that.
Build on that.
And I think there has been issues in so there's got to be enforcement. And there's guidelines to go by, whether it be police, Newland County Police, whether it be Ada County building inspections, whether it be the magistrate's office, you know. There is ways to enforce this if people do.
To enforce.
But what you're saying is, Chrissy, is that there is no body, there's no governance that actually will drive. So I can put anything on paper, but we don't have anything that drives it, which is what I think prompts this discussion.
They don't have the money to pay nobody to do it.
We don't have employees, guys. We have one maintenance man. is
One
that correct?
maintenance worker.
No, I'm saying police.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is if you enact this, you're gonna pay somebody $40 an hour, $50 an hour that they don't have. How many hours is gonna go into enforcing this?
Well, and listen, I'm sitting here and I've been shockingly quiet through this whole thing. You know, this has been a treat, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever night this is. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, I hear everybody talking on both sides. We want ordinances and we want some rules, and we don't want strip clubs, and we don't want vape stores, and we don't want liquor stores, but we don't want this. So that whole reason the board did this, and the whole reason we're here tonight is to let the board know, and let Rick know, and let the town know the things that we don't like about this. Now, I'm gonna be the first one to raise my hand and say, 95% of what y'all talk about, I don't like. And I completely agree with you, but I think the purpose of this meeting tonight was to start that conversation. Everybody came in here hot. Bruce Lacy's been a friend of mine for years, and I very jokingly, and Bruce has known me and knows I'm a jokester, jokingly said something to him, and he took my head off. I sent my wife a text and said, this ain't gonna go very well tonight. Okay, so I was hoping everybody would come in here, tell what you don't like. You don't like SRR 12 and PD 4 or whatever, and you don't like that you can't plant a 4-inch tree. You don't like this. That's what I was hoping we would have tonight, so that we could whittle this thing down back to where it needs to be, because we have an orange ordinance book. And Laura, I'll look and see if it says we can't have strip clubs. I didn't know that.
And the county has a policy.
County has an
Yeah.
ordinance too.
Yeah.
We don't enforce it. And going by what we have now that we don't enforce now, open up the page. My point is everybody came in here, and I understand, I completely understand, the gentleman back there, welcome to Newland for 7 years. What you said about helping your veteran dads, I just bought a piece of property, on my street. I went and looked, it would drastically affect me, okay? I had people texting me nonstop. I didn't understand until Bruce Lacy just pointed it out. It's right here on the first page. That's why everybody was so up in arms, because it's got a date.
Where did they come from? Where did they come from?
I don't know, stop.
It was gonna be
Stop. Everybody's texting me, and I didn't know why everybody was panicking. I'm texting people back, calm down, we're not voting on this, there's a process, we've got to have several meetings, we've got to.
No, we've got to have a public hearing, I thought that was.
That's a meeting.
Here we are.
And this is a continuation of the last board meeting, so you can vote tonight.
From last board meeting,
Okay.
we were shown.
And I think what I'm trying to say is, you're right, the town has spent a ton of money on this. I think that, I have a problem with us just saying, you know what, the hell with $85,000. I don't understand why we're not finishing the process and saying, gut it all the way back and make it look like our little ordinance book. Okay? And do away with the adjustments board, do away with it. That's the purpose of this meeting, folks. It's not necessarily to beat up Rick.
You can't do it because of the statute.
Yeah.
You either vote for this or you don't.
Oh, but am I correct, we can get a bunch of this stuff out of here?
We can cut a lot of that, can't do it with a board of adjustment, that's the requirement of the law, to exercise any authority on development.
But you can go to a lot of this, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's all I'm saying. I think it's asinine just tonight, this all just go over. I mean, I can tell y'all, this ain't gonna go nowhere.
Please say it.
I know what's going on with the board.
I think the town of Newland needs to cut their losses and go on.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Yes, let's take a vote, make a vote.
Take a vote
But
tonight.
at some point, does anybody in this room think that Newland should have any additional guidelines, ordinances, or
I'd like
rules or
to say
regulations?
something about that.
Beyond what's in the proposal?
There are municipalities that are similar in size who have zoning ordinances. Spruce Pine, Blowing Rock were mentioned. If we could look at their ordinances and use a format for a much smaller municipality, which has ordinances which are much clearer and customized to their size and their needs, and pattern what we're doing. After that, instead of having a massive 500-page document that is not understandable to the public, maybe it would be better received.
I'll say this, Blowing Rock kept me and my wife from opening up a hair salon for 9 months over the color of the interior walls, over the type of toilet that we had.
True.
For 9 months, I paid the lease, paid the power, paid everything, because the town of Blowing Rock, you come in, you got the wrong, it's not a handicap toilet. There's a handicap dude on the side of the box. What do you mean it's not a handicap toilet? So I get what you're saying, but I wanna hear from y'all, so we know how to proceed, so this board knows how to proceed forward. What is it that the town wants? Because y'all came in here hot tonight,
The city of Houston has no zoning.
Exactly.
okay?
The third largest city in the United States.
Okay.
Fix what we already have.
Why can't we start small and build from there?
But
Enforcing the law that you
enforcement
have.
costs. So if you wanna change the orange book, like the orange book, it doesn't necessarily have some problems with it. Really, the problem is that there's no enforcement for that. It's just like when the people complain about, there's no dog enforcement. So if you have no enforcement somewhere, that's gonna be one of your starting points. Even if you adopt this, it's like, there's a substantial cost that comes with continuing to go forward.
And those people need to be fair and impartial.
And if we don't enforce what we've
You can't
got,
find that
why are we
middle
trying to start something new that will not be enforced?
If I can make a comment about that orange book, if that's any kind of development regulation that y'all had a long time ago, those actually expired on July 1 of 2021. Right, Tom, is that right? July 1 of 2021, the state statute mandated modifications be made by 2020 originally, but of course COVID caused them to reschedule that a little bit and pushed it out to July 1 of 2021. Then they gave a little bit, actually they pushed it to August and they pulled it back to July 1. So we were dancing all over the place, as busy as you could be. And so what you've got in some of these articles, regardless of how thin you want your book, is what you'll have to have, whether I write it or anyone else writes it. That Articles 5, for example, on amendments, how an amendments are processed, that is laid out in the state statute. Now, there's some stuff in there, some tools, some flexible tools that you could take out that you're not required to have, but the flexible tool benefits your citizens more. So just ripping it down based on a page count is not there. No project's gonna use half of the pages as the book. Not a single project, I don't care how big it is, would be in there, because there's different kinds of projects, there's different kinds of situations that trigger different things. Well, we can easily strip this back to a bare bones, but the procedural side, unfortunately, is going to need to remain for you to actually have that authority. I want to mention something. I heard a term a little while ago about strip clubs. And so I want to tell you a little something about that. The reason this table is so long, that lists the uses, is because if you don't call it out, then you have to round it off to the nearest allowable thing. So it's better to have a long list, and if I have to look through 8 pages to find, okay, hardware store, then that's clear, it's not just store. And so vape store or hardware store are treated the same. In the absence of detail, that rounding occurs. Now, back to the strip clubs. The state statutes in the state of North Carolina, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what kind of business you like or in, protect certain industries. And that is one of them. No jurisdiction can completely box that out, believe it or not. And that's not right. A lot of local control, I like some of the stuff that went into the new statutes. It made some of the tools more flexible and more valid for towns, but at the same time, they took away certain abilities for towns, and they crammed certain things down our throats. And so if we don't have the proper way to do it, and I want to take just a moment to explain this, please, if I may. The administrative determinations or decisions made by any king, any administrator, any board, okay, whether it's the governing board, the planning board, an administrator, if it is interpreting a provision to issue a permit or to apply, determine whether something applies or not, any of that is an administrative determination that goes to the Board of Adjustment. If this board were to review and approve plats themselves and somebody appealed that, guess where it goes? The Board of Adjustment. That's state law. So what we've tried to do in here is craft this in such a way that unfortunately that king, sir, is an important task, but it has to be a qualified king that knows not to be king, but to simply help people, facilitate people's success through this ordinance. The only thing that the board should be doing are what we call legislative decisions. A legislative decision is like making law, like adopting a policy like that, okay? The other thing is a change. And so what you do is you set your zoning map up around the existing conditions. And we were hoping, we got markers, we were hoping to be able to direct people's stuff when we got more detail about buildings or something like that that Tom couldn't figure out trying to research it online. And so that legislative decision is a critical step to put in the path. If you want to look at a situation and be able to say no, and I don't care if it's the strip club or a puppy grooming place, if the will of the town is to reject something, that's why these hearings are held, then the best way to do it is through that legislative authority. Because as you mentioned, sir, you were talking about reasonableness and things like that. You actually have to justify the adoption. You have to justify the change. You have to justify everything along the way. This board does, except one thing, the no vote. So in any major change in town, if you really want to control what happens to your future as a town, leave a situation in place where you have the ability to legitimately say no, without any required explanation. If a developer came in that was terrifying the town, and it required a rezoning to do their project, and they voted no, that's it. The only thing that can be appealed on that, and correct me for those attorneys in the room, the only thing that can be appealed on that is on the due process side, meaning did they properly advertise the hearing, did they properly send out a notice? The actual decision is yours and yours alone as the elected officials. You are the crowning, you are the king. That's who the king is. It's actually the elected officials. As a body, not individually. We don't have a bunch of kings, we have a body that is king. So the way this was written was to try to give you that ability to have that ability to say thumbs up on new things that changed. I'm not talking about adding a room. That's all they gotta do. You meet a standard if you're doing something new, and that's that. And it's not, has nothing to do with changing an air conditioning unit or whatever, okay? It's like building a new house or something. Yeah, you need to meet the new standard. It's that simple.
So then, but what happens then to people who something happens to their building, and because of these new standards, it makes my property, it makes my family's property null and void.
We take that
The
part out.
town of Newland has essentially taken our property and said, we still want you to pay taxes and everything on it, but you can't put anything back in its place.
There's not a situation where you couldn't put anything back. You always have the right.
And you, let's have it break control, and you can say no. That's what you said, control, and you're a little spilled, and you
No,
can say
not in
no.
a zoning
They
change.
can control them and say no.
If you're talking
if
about
they want.
changing the zoning, like if you've got a, let's say somebody wanted to come in and take a property and change it to a big apartment complex or whatever. They could simply vote no on the zoning change. That's what I'm saying. Anyway.
It still makes my problem.
At this time, you know, I'm not trying to pull no punches. I'm not for this. I was born here, raised here. That don't make me any better than you. Okay, don't make me better than anyone it was. But I certainly appreciate y'all coming. But my personal opinion is, and I'm gonna make this motion, and I don't know if it'll go. I'm gonna make the motion that we do away with this, just hold it back in the folder, and dissolve the planning board until we're better suited to move forward with the town. Mr. Mayor.
You want to do that tonight?
This is your meeting. Yes, this is on your agenda.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those not? 3-1, y'all have a good evening.
Hey, you, I'm doing good, business, you go with it.